yeah, like that. And I talked about Eladine last week. What she can bring. She's obviously been, I think, one of your second leading scorers all season consistently. Just maybe a little tinge more than Delea, right? Because Delea is doing other things in terms of stuffing the stat sheet. And I mean, we've talked about whether it's this show last week or all of us generally consistently throughout this year. And I've heard Bella talk about it last season because she was on this beat already, was Savia Sellers. Like we've talked about Savia Sellers all year. We've talked to Tina about her. Like, and I mean, it's for good reason. She's been your best player. She's been incredibly efficient. The little guard that could, uh, you know, but then L, I mean, I asked Tina yesterday during the presser, like, okay. That's fair. Uh, about how having L, like there are so many times where, Savia hit a shot, L will hit a shot, or one of them will make a defensive play, and you see them both immediately going to basically give each other, props for that. Like, so I just wanted to ask a little bit about that relationship. And Tina had great words for those two as well, and basically said in summarizing, because I'm not going to read the full Otter transcription, that Elle like lit up any room that she was in and was such a valuable presence, for the chemistry of that team, which is good to hear because you're going to get a new crop of guards that she'll kind of need to do that for again. Um, and obviously the backcourt goes beyond Elle and Savia. I know there's other praise to dole out here as well, with Hannah Steins, who, in talking to someone with the team, I referred to her as the glue, because I mean Hannah Steins provides some pretty valuable minutes. And I mean, I think it was Bella who asked in last game's presser that, um, since her 28 point game, 28, okay, 28-point game, a career high, has really been consistently strong shooting the basketball. So Bella, I'm gonna throw that lob to you. And then Rowan, backcourt wise, I want to hear from you as well, just with Washington's backcourt this season, which, as I just got done talking about my worry for the front court, has obviously been their big strength this year.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that we have another year of El Ladine, so I just wanted to make sure that people know that we also have another year of Hannah Steins. And I just feel like since she had that career high night, she's been confident in her shot and she's been shooting from three really well. And so much of Washington's offense depends on hitting threes. Like we've talked about it, it just is a fact. Like that is th their best offense in a lot of ways. And so having her and Savia are sort of both point guards. It's a bit they sort of will switch off who is running the point at various points in the game. But having both of those players who can both facilitate and hit their own shots, I just feel like the importance of that can't be overstated. I think she was in double digits, I want to say, against USC. I don't remember exactly how many points, but she had a couple threes. And she just looks confident when she shoots. We had talked to, it was after, what was the home game before the USC game? It was a game.
Maryland or no?
Was it Maryland? Yeah, it might have been Maryland. And I was asking Elle and Savia like what they thought of Hannah's confidence since that game, the career high game. And Elle was basically talking like, well, I've known she can do this the whole time. Like she is a very, very capable scorer. And even though Hannah didn't necessarily talk about after the USC game about being more confident, it's something that I just feel like radiates off of people sometimes. Like you can just feel when they're more confident taking their shot and taking those shots away from other people in particular. I think at times as a point guard, right, it can be tough to decide when do I shoot my own shot and when do I create for others. And I think at times she would get stuck in creating too much for others when she would have, say, a wide open three. And I really have loved seeing her be more of a scoring threat. I think another one of the positives from the USC game was just how balanced the scoring was. Like, no, you didn't really have bench scoring, but you did have like it wasn't L had 40 and then everyone else had like 8, 9, and 8. It was multiple players in double digits and like really significantly contributing. And I just think I just think we've seen a little bit more from her in the past couple games. Maybe it was just sort of like I needed the wake up call of a 28 of a 28 point career high game. Um, but I just think she plays really well with Elle and Savia, and she's really good at finding open spaces and pushing play. Um, and it's really important that right now she is feeling confident in her shot and hitting those shots and contributing. Because what we talked about earlier in the season was basically not getting enough contribution outside of Savia and Elle and Delia, depending on which one went off on the night. So having her contribute consistently, um, and really recognizing that she's a very talented scorer, I just think, just wanted to give her a little praise for that.
I mean,
That's
with
all.
that too, I'm looking at the box score again, and for USC, and a stat that I again overlooked is she had 10 rebounds in that game against USC as well. So she had a double double, 10 points, 10 rebounds. That's huge. And I think, I mean, I noticed that also stood out to me in the game. I mean, if I remember correctly, she was being guarded by Juju, who played, I believe, the same amount of minutes as her. Hannah played, 39. I believe Juju played around the same. And I think, the way that she was confident in her shot. I mean, she, against someone who, is one of the biggest names and, just in the country, I feel like you have to be confident to attempt to shoot and also just to, be out there playing the way that she was. And yeah, so I definitely agree with you with the Hannah Stein's praise. And I think that has been huge, even if we're looking at both Oregon and USC. That distributed scoring, yes, while it's only among the starters, is very important. And I think that, going back to what we were talking about earlier, if there was a little bit more bench input, I feel like this could be one of the best teams in the Big Ten. I mean, you have, Savia and Elle, who, on any given night, it's nice to have a backcourt of two players who are, somewhat comparable, where if one is having a hard time, here's another. You have a 40-point career high from Elle. You have a player who can kind of someone else that can pick up the slack, but also on a night where they're both, shooting consistently and distributing consistently, you just keep adding on to your stat sheet. And yeah, I think it's great to see so many, Hannah kind of moving into that, third supporting guard scorer role. And I love to see that. Um, and then you have, again, you have the support from the post of Delia Daniels, and then back to what we were talking about with Tyra Eke. I mean, I do think that she's been a great distributor. I can't remember what game it was. I believe she is at least in the top four in assists on the team. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's great to see distribution to these guards that have really been great offensively. And I mean, yeah, I think that's all. I mean, we've already said how great Savia and Elle are. I don't even know what more there is to say about it. But yeah, I just think I agree with you on the Hannah Steins adding her into that big three guards there.
You did remind me with Stein's rebounding stat. I wanted to give a little bit of praise because we had talked in the last show about the guard rebounding kind of falling off after it had been a focus on the in the early part of the season. But against USC, they
Well,
really pulled it out. I think I think they out rebounded them in the end. And it was
I
sort
think
of
it was I believe it was tied, but also
okay, it was close.
that
Yeah.
that Hannah had 8 defensive rebounds to 2 offensive rebounds,
Mm.
meaning that she was going in to get these rebounds against a Kiki Iriafen, Rhea Marshall type lineup there. That's huge.
Yeah, it definitely felt like against USC in particular, and I think against Oregon as well, like they're sort of getting back on track of because we don't have a massive post presence, the guards need to rebound. You need to box out and you need to rebound. And they did a very good job of that, particularly considering that the posts that were there were Kiki Iriafen and Ray Marshall, like very, very talented rebounders. And I think they did a really good job against USC. It was a bummer because they really got killed by offensive rebounds at the very end
Mm.
there, which it's tough because it's again that also plays into like the end of the game, everyone being tired. Like, are you are your guards that have now played 35 minutes at this point, like really wanting to run in for that rebound? Like it's just tougher. But I did want to like acknowledge that I think the guard rebounding, despite them being losses, was a really big positive and can hopefully help them get some wins down the stretch here.
And because of that last time in the USC game, and because we talked about it on the show, I asked Tina about it yesterday. I said, "Hey, how have you felt about the way your guards have crashed the glass?" She was very excited about it, but really thought that she said that they wanted to be better at it in the USC game, and they appreciated. She obviously highlighted Hannah for the double double there. That's nice. But yeah, it was nice to see her kind of talk about that, and that's something that they've worked on in practice. Um, you know, so that was she mentioned Chloe Briggs too as a rebounder, and I was like, oh, okay. Oh yeah, and she said
I
Savia
think
got a
I
board too every now and then, which makes us laugh. And then she goes, "I'm kidding." And I'm like, "Oh my, okay, Tina, a little bit of humor."
I
Um,
think Chloe Briggs had 6 or 7
Yeah,
rebounds.
she had six. And
oh,
it
that's
is true that she's one of
fascinating.
those people that you see kind of that you want to see and you have seen her just like, kind of wiggling her way in there in a way that that effort is something that we were talking about has been lacking. And so, yeah, props to Chloe Briggs.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Who did you ask about being top four in assists numbers,
Ira.
Rowan? Tyra, she's second on the team in
Oh,
the. Oh
okay.
wait,
I
no,
was
no, no,
gonna
no,
say
no, no, no,
second,
no,
but
no, 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 no,
okay,
no.
I was
I
gonna
said
say
that's different.
okay. We'll
Averages.
see.
Sorry, I was looking at rebounds. I was like, wow, Tyra's great.
I was gonna say
No,
another thing
she's
that Bella.
yeah,
Oh, okay. Did you
seven.
find it? I was gonna just
She's lower on the
take
list.
the time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
dang. Okay, I think at one point, I will say at one point, and again, I think her minutes have been fluctuating a bit. So I know that at one point I looked and she was, I think it was second or third in assists. The other thing I was going to say, going back to something Bella mentioned a while ago, um, talking about the reasoning for the late in game execution in close games, I think that the again, I mentioned it last week of the timing of when they implement different defenses. And I think I mentioned before that against Iowa, for example, they just waited way too long to be pressing, that then they were
Ah,
slowly making their way back. And I noticed that at the beginning that the double team on Juju Watkins was working really well, and that somehow they couldn't find someone else to kick it out to, who was left open. And I think that that was great and that was huge. But one, burns energy really early on. And two, it felt like USC was able to make those adjustments that then later in the game, like I said, El Ladine kind of kept, getting a little bit out of rotation to a Kaylee Heckle, shooting a three that I think maybe Tina Langley was willing to give up her shooting the three. Not sure, but either way, I think those are things that are also important of when do you implement this defense? Do you wait to see if Juju is, gonna go off and then you start double teaming, or do you just, preemptively just decide to do it? And what will that look like in the long run for if you do get in a very close end of game situation? It's a give or take.
sorry, I messed up the numbers there. Tyra is sixth in the team in assists per game.
Okay,
They are
terrible.
in doing their stats, they're one of the worst like total like team assist teams in the Big Ten. They are not good at that. They're the top in field goal percentage and 3-point percentage though, so that's been there. But what I was gonna say, with you talked about the recruiting class, right? And you talked about the bench depth. Like obviously this puts a good amount of like belief that these freshmen, these true freshmen, will come in and impact a team, which is not something that you usually want to bank on, right? But with how, at least with how Tina has talked about some of the recruits, like Bryn McGoy was at this USC game, which was nice. A McDonald's All-American, someone who, essentially can score from all three levels. Not Tyra. Tyra was not talking about her. Tina was saying talked about her professionalism and her mind for the game, and I'm like, hey, if Bryn can come in and do something similar to maybe what Devin has done, that gives you another option off the bench. It gives you a little bit of a breather right? For a Savia, for an L. So I mean, you've got that in terms of the guards. Again, it just goes back to, anything but the guards. I mean, and your depth there, and maybe anything but guards and wings. It was mentioned somewhere in all the praise for the guards. Delia Daniels.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, how about them Huskies?
Ooh, purple and gold, baby.
Yeah. When are you going to watch all those away games, though?
All those away games. There are a lot of them, and I was hoping to come to Rough and Tumble because this is the home of Circling Saddle Sports. If that's okay with you.
I think that's a great idea. Hope to see you all here.